Well, hello everybody and welcome to today's webinar, Expert Insights into Quality 4.0 and Automation for Food and Beverage. So this event, which is brought to you by Food Safety Magazine, is sponsored by ETQ. I'm Adrienne Bloom, Editorial Director of Food Safety Magazine, and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar, and I want to thank you for joining us. So today's presenters are joining us from PwC. That's Drew Kneps, manager within PwC's Operation Transformation Practice, and also Priyanka Chaudhary, manager of Operations Transformation. Also joining us are Arthur Gehring, Vice President of Marketing at ETQ, and Jenny Speck, Management Consultant at Speck Compliance Advantage LLC. So I'll rejoin the presenters at the end to answer your questions that come in throughout the webinar, so don't forget to submit those in your Q&A box and chat box section of the webinar console. Today's event is also being recorded and archived on food-safety.com. So now I'm excited to turn it over to our first presenters, Drew and Priyanka. Drew and Priyanka, take it away.
Perfect. Hi all, looking forward to speaking with you today. So just to get us started, one of the things that we wanted to kick off with was, we're really seeing a increasing focus on quality, both from internal as well as external factors, and really across a few different dimensions. So certainly from a customer element, really as we think about customers and their kind of increased engagement and awareness around how products perform and the quality of those products. From a company perspective, certainly as we see companies really looking to avoid recalls and avoid high quality risks. From a regulatory perspective, from a how increasingly stringent regulations are being put in place and how industry deals with, and then especially from an overall industry perspective of what does it mean to drive quality further, not just as a kind of a requirement, but how you really switch quality to be a more of a competitive advantage and what that really can drive from a business outcome perspective. And what we see is that quality is now, traditionally, quality has been more of the big brother within the organization and has really focused on, how do you make sure to kind of meet the minimum requirements around quality. We're really seeing that shift in quality, really focusing on being able to deliver operational outcomes and really help drive a competitive advantage. That's across things such as a reliable supply chain, especially given the past years that we've seen and kind of the unexpected nature of the impact of global affairs on our supply chain. From a robust product and data perspective, so the more data that we're getting and kind of how do we centralize and really use that data to drive better quality adherence. From a competitive landscape perspective, there's really a greater focus on how products quality is driving not only kind of that minimum required, but really that competitive advantage of making safer and effective products, being able to avoid any kind of regulatory focus on quality and using that as more of a competitive advantage. And then certainly from a speed to market perspective, the greater the quality controls that we see and the greater focus on quality at the beginning of the process, helping you to drive and really launch your project into the speed of market in a more effective and efficient way. And lastly, from an innovation perspective, so really seeing how quality doesn't just become one part of the supply chain, but really helps to support across, and really through seeing this in a very much through a digital perspective, which my colleague Drew will speak more to as well.
Thanks, Priyanka. As Priyanka laid out on the previous slide, I think we're seeing an overwhelming trend of companies leveraging quality to not only deliver operational outcomes, but business outcomes as well. Today, apologies, one slide too far. In today's discussion, we'd like to focus on how companies are thinking about costs and the impact that costs can have on helping to deliver business outcomes such as increased revenue or improved margins. We see companies leveraging a metric such as total cost of quality, sometimes organizations refer to it as cost of poor quality, et cetera, but really using a holistic measure of how quality is impacting cost, not only at the bottom line or at the bottom line level. There are two buckets for total cost of quality that we typically like to break down for our clients. One being things such as failure costs, and the other being really prevention costs. So your failure costs are really things that are happening kind of in the day-to-day business. This can be things such as scrap rework for product that may not meet specification. It can be costs related to recalls or customer replacement costs based on complaints that are received, even to revenue that's lost to delayed project launches or inventory backlog, et cetera. The second bucket around prevention costs is really investments that companies can make to help drive down their overall failure costs. These investments can be things such as implementing or transforming their current state QMS. It can be costs associated with conducting internal or supplier audits, all the way through implementing digital solutions and improving the overall digital capabilities of their quality organization. Now, when it comes to total cost of quality, we see that, again, companies are beginning to track this metric more and more, but there are still gaps or improvements that can be made in how companies measure this or how closely it is measured within an organization. So on our next slide, we're showing here a bit of data that we've collected through a series of surveys across industries. So this includes participants from food and beverage, consumer products, even life sciences. But you can see that from some of the results, companies are measuring performance against different quality components, but maybe not as holistically as they could be. So what does this mean? It means that most companies don't have a full picture of their overall quality performance. Quality organizations aren't able to fully communicate the value they deliver to their organizations. And the bottom line impact that quality organizations have for their overall organization may be undervalued. So companies across industries, but especially in food and bev, need to really start thinking of quality a bit more proactively than reactively, and total cost of quality can help them with that mindset. Now, the last piece on our end is how we at PwC like to think about quality. And we usually work with our clients and leverage our Quality 4.0 framework to help our clients think about quality and how it can deliver those operational and business outcomes. The framework is focused on consumer outcomes and anchored around four primary pillars, those being org DNA and culture, process and procedures, operational excellence, and finally, digital quality. The interconnectedness of these four pillars really help companies to develop a holistic approach to quality. Starting with org DNA, just to give a quick overview for everyone on the call, really helps to ensure that leadership and the entire organization foster an environment where quality is prioritized and visible through the implementation of metrics and behavioral indicators. So metrics such as total cost of quality, like we touched on the last slide. From a process and procedure perspectives, really ensuring companies have an established QMS consisting of end-to-end business processes. Operational excellence allows companies to ensure quality is integrated upstream and downstream when it comes to other business functions. So making sure quality is tied into supply chain, research and development, quality control, and through operations. So those end-to-end business processes being integrated and adapting to the business processes of other functions within the organization. And lastly, again, the last pillar being digital quality. When leveraged correctly, this allows companies to really enable their workforce from digitally and allows organizations to drive efficiency in how quality practices are executed. And I think, obviously, digital being a large component of our discussion here today, I think in the next section of our webinar, Art is going to give us an example of how ETQ is helping companies to expand or get started on their digital journey. So at this point, I will turn it over to Art to walk through the next section of our presentation.
Sorry, I was on mute for a sec. Thanks, Drew and Priyanka. That insight on the cost of quality is really interesting. Look forward to further discussion later in the webinar. So before I hand things over to Jenny Speck, who's a real world practitioner, and will be providing some real insight on some more specifics on the problems we solve and the challenges faced by food and beverage practitioners today. I want to just talk a little bit about ETQ, who we are, and the types of problems we help our customers solve. So we've been in business for over 30 years in empowering quality champions to use quality management as a catalyst for business success. We do that through a flexible, scalable, easy to use EQMS solution that's purpose-built to connect quality processes to all areas of organizations. Our customers really rely on us as a trusted advisor, really a partner, helping guide them along their quality journey wherever they may be, from even making the business case to planning and onboarding. We are part of Hexagon, which is a global leader in sensor software, autonomous manufacturing solutions. And as you can see here at the bottom, we've won a number of awards. We're in fact ranked number 1 on G2 in the QMS category. G2 is the leading peer review site for B2B software, and we've actually been a leader on G2 for 9 quarters in a row. And why is that? Well, it's through our solution. ETQ Reliance is a platform, a broad portfolio of business process applications, 42 of them, in fact. We'll take a quick look at what those are in a second. But the platform provides these applications in an interconnected, on a cloud native SaaS solution, which provides quite a few benefits. Let's take a deeper look at what those are. So people really like this diagram because it kind of shows what we're talking about more specifically. Those of you that are counting, you can quickly see there's not 42 right here. There's 18 because some of these are offered in application sets. But a lot of key solutions that we provide our customers, wide range of them, as you can see, and they're all sort of on a platform that's in the cloud that provides advanced analytics, that provides connectivity between all the applications to provide real efficiency, and all these applications are ready to use out of the box, but configurable in sort of a no-code scenario. They're all available through mobile. Jenny Speck can talk specifically about that, but this gives you an idea of what we're talking about. And we're used by a wide range of industries. Obviously, you can see here some specifically for food and bev, but one of the appeals of our solution, because of the flexible platform, it has very much of a cross-industry appeal, but also we're able to leverage some of the learnings in various industries to bring those back to others. So a good example is APQP practices from our automotive clients. We've kind of built those into new product introduction application across all industries, leveraging the power of the customer feedback in life sciences to provide that to other organizations in other industries as well. Some of the specifics around food and bev as to why food and beverage clients trust us and rely on us are 2 major areas: improving their quality processes and mitigating food and beverage quality risks through compliance with a wide range of requirements and regulations. So in terms of quality processes, there's prevent or minimize product issues, and recalls. Traceability obviously is very important in food and beverage these days. We also provide a safety application. So many organizations turn to us for safety as well as quality. Of course, meeting their HACCP needs. And in terms of quality risk, as you can see, there's a wide range of standards and regulations that we help comply with. Another big reason, and I think PwC mentioned earlier, Drew mentioned, is around supplier quality. Obviously, that's been a major challenge more recently, and we help manage your suppliers more efficiently and onboard them more quickly. We provide access, secure access right through our cloud-based solution to improve those communications. So before I hand off to Jenny, I just want to give you a couple more specific examples to bring it all home. So the first one is a fascinating company. It's a vertical farmer called Plenty. This is for many of you may be familiar with that, but these vertical farmers, they use 95% less water and less land, 99% less land to meet our food supply. This is a really interesting case. It kind of exemplifies what I was talking to earlier about cross industry. So many of the quality professionals at Plenty came from the automotive industry and are using sort of automotive best practices in terms of their approach to quality. Another good example is Chick-fil-A, who had a different need, which is they were building out new channel for being in retail and for their stores in certain areas, and so they needed a rapid application. So this really exemplifies how quickly we can be set up. We set up 12 applications in 42 days to meet Chick-fil-A's needs. A final good example. I'm sorry if I'm making you guys hungry, and hopefully you've all had lunch or breakfast or dinner, wherever you are. But this is a food and beverage webinar. But this particular use case was around supplier quality, and Subway, as their supply chain grew rapidly, they needed a better, more efficient way to onboard new suppliers, communicate with them more directly, to rate them, et cetera. So this is another a good example of the type of problems that we solve. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jenny Speck. Thanks, Jenny.
Thanks, Art. I'm so happy to be here, and thank you all for having me today. I'm thrilled to be part of this webinar and to share my passion for management systems. My goal today is to take you down from that 30,000 foot level to the ground or below, and kind of share some real world experiences with you that I've come across in my tenure in the industry, and show you how big change can really be broken down into small, manageable pieces and solutions which drive quality and food safety to the next level. Today I'd like to give you a very brief introduction to myself and my business. I would like then to share with you some typical problems that I've encountered, along with the solutions that have been applied specifically for food and beverage clients. We'll wrap up with some ideas and next steps you can take back for your business to bring some value add, and then we'll hand it back to Art for some discussion and some Q&A. As the lead consultant for and owner of Spec Compliance Advantage, I'm very proud to have spent the last 15 years of my career learning the nuances and caveats of management systems. I'm excited to be able to partner with so many different businesses in different phases of their food safety journey, to be able to share my knowledge and come up with creative solutions to their problems. Now, audits are a huge part of our everyday business, but all too often are looked at with severe negative connotations. At Spec Compliance Advantage, we really look to change that, because we believe that audits are the gateway to evolution. While our focus is helping our clients achieve that coveted audit ready all the time status, we know that that comes through more than just management systems and data. It comes through building and securing a culture of quality. And Rome wasn't built in the day, and neither was your management system. But like all great things, it has to start with something small, right? An idea, a seed. So how do we capture those seeds and sow our own success? In today's modern industry, planting the seed alone is not enough to ensure that your business and your management systems continue to grow and thrive. A lot goes into what is a seemingly simple process. You must consider both the environment that feeds the management system as well as the data and information that the system is collecting. Data collection is increasing at incredible speeds with today's modern technology, but all too often I've seen that the management system doesn't necessarily keep up with that influx of data. We collect data, but maybe it has no place to go, or we have a spot for it, but there it just sits. It's not without a purpose or ease of access maybe. Or maybe one point we're building one part and we're upgrading one part of our management system while maybe another part is an old antiquated methods using paper-based. How do you link those two together to keep it going strong and to share that? Making sure that they stay aligned is another challenge that the industry is facing. And as a whole, it can seem very daunting when it comes time for audits, right? And you feel like you're spiraling out of control a little bit under the surface. And this is one reason, why quality automation is necessary to achieve that compliance and growth in today's industry. So it's been actually scientifically proven that plants can communicate with one another through their root structures. And the same is true for our analogies for management systems. Having the right structure in place is paramount for proper communication and retrieval of information. Now, our food safety scheme, such as FSSE 22000, gives us the minimum structural branches we need to have in this root system, right, to collect information, but it doesn't tell us how it has to be set up and built and organized, or how to have information pass through it. It just kind of gives you the guidelines. So we really need to make sure that we have the right system in place and make it as efficient as possible to keep down and benefit the most in our total cost of quality. It'll be, the better structure that you have, it will make it more adaptable to change over time. And, where it's able to survive in a world that's always pushing forward at these breakneck speeds. But in contrast, if you have slower processes, if you have complicated processes, or that disconnect that we talked about between what is paper-based and what may be going digital or is digital, it can lead to mistakes, double handling, and compile those inefficiencies. Ultimately, this puts a lot of stress on the management system as a whole, and it can affect the culture. And suddenly those problems below the surface aren't below the surface anymore. They begin to affect that culture. It's been less adaptable to change, and the overall communication and information flow suffers. All of this plays out for you against the bottom line in the total cost of quality. So how do we change this? I'm going to give you an example. I was working with a client whose non-conforming on-hold process was manual and still predominantly paper-based. A copy, when something didn't meet specifications for either quality or food safety, it was put on hold, right? That's our process. They made a photocopy, they put one on the actual on-hold material, and then the next one had to be given to the department manager, who then would make additional copies as their procedure dictated and work with other managers, whether that's to be, we have to do retesting, maybe there's an investigation or a repair that needs to be made, supplier contacts, etc. Once they had identified what they were going to do and made a final determination, whether that's retesting, rework, sorting, destruction, return to supplier, a release paper form was filled out. It was stapled to the original on-hold form. In addition, the client did keep an Excel tracker, which would kind of give them a master list, but it had to be manually updated. The completed paperwork was filed away for safekeeping. And as you can imagine, while it worked well for a production operation, the process was wrought with both inefficiencies and food safety risk. While they were working towards digitization with the Excel tracker, in terms of traceability, there was still a big risk there for the client. In addition, their business was growing and they were looking to add additional locations. So they needed to enhance their route structure and information highway. They needed oversight for multiple locations, and they needed better information to make better informed decisions. So what did we do? This client was already transitioning into the digital quality space for documents, corrective actions, and audits, utilizing ETQ as a host platform. We were able to take that existing solution for quality and pivot it to also apply for food safety and quality traceability. This allowed for the better transfer of information between people and locations. It was updated in real time, and could, of course, because it's cloud-based, as Art had mentioned earlier, be accessed from anywhere. As we all know, in the time of COVID, this became even more critical for our business survival. The client was able to collect additional data as well, and further break down the process to help with that data analysis. They were able to track the costs associated with the non-conforming material, which then could later be fed up into the cost of quality matrix. We were even able to develop and integrate a printable pallet tag right from there with all the desired information. This allowed for consistency across the different locations. The platform build allowed us to make assignments, track and set deadlines for certain phases, and overall control the flow of information. From a an audit standpoint, right? I'm always looking from, if I'm an auditor and I'm coming in, the software acted like a digital file folder and paperclip, keeping all associated records together. And that's really where a huge benefit and power is when it comes to the software and the solution. If further action was required from a non-conforming material, because they had already set up their CAPA module or corrective actions module, we were able to link it directly with a hyperlink and kept all of those records together with a couple of simple clicks. It basically became an information highway for complete record traceability. So this is just one example of how a small change towards quality automation can pay off big. One process change gave more control, better, more complete records, standardization, more data, and better access to it. Now, thinking about your own quality automation journey, I would like to caution you against three main pitfalls that I've come across, and they come up more often than you think, no matter what size organization you're a part of. The first is pushing too fast without that right root structure in place. This can lead to gaps in your system. It can lead to produce less or have poorer quality. The second is information overload. Don't collect information for the sake of collecting information. If you collect data, make sure it is something that's meaningful to your operation and that you can gain something from it. Lastly, you could have a great structure. You could be analyzing your data on a regular basis, but don't forget about the basics and the contributions of the environment. I've often gone to a facility and to do an audit, seen an excellent GMP program. It was right there in a beautiful program, ready to hand the auditor. But then when you take a walk on the floor, that same professionalism, that crispness, that sharpness isn't exactly what you see. This is a huge red flag for auditors and can set the whole tone for your audit. While it may seem like low-hanging fruit, CGMPs are so much more than that. They are the one area that I inspect. It's the very first area that I inspect to get an idea of a client's culture for quality and food safety. Maybe you are cleaning at your desired frequency, but do you know if that frequency is really appropriate to convey the message of cleanliness and organization that you want to show? Do you truly know how often things need to be clean and the proper methods to clean it, to be efficient with that, to minimize your downtime? If you believe your operators are best served, not cleaning, but running those machines to keep everything going, then this can certainly be outsourced. I would caution against outsourcing all of it completely, because everybody should have skin in the game when it comes to their food safety management system. But in the same tokens, there are tons of resources out there that'll help you and identify not only what needs to be cleaned to make that all-star impression, but how to do it in the most effective way possible to minimize downtime. This whole idea cleans up and tills the soil in our analogy, but also don't forget to go back and periodically and do a little weeding. This eliminates resources being applied to unnecessary areas. It'll also keep your process and operation running efficiently and streamlined. I'd like to wrap up today with a few key takeaways. First, audits are not your enemy, but your opportunity. Audits, they're essentially open book tests. right? Preparation on a regular basis, quality, a strong quality information retrieval structure, and ingraining this into your everyday culture will make your next audit a breeze. And while no one likes findings, they enlighten us to issues we may not be seeing. It's an opportunity to improve the system and come out stronger. Next, leverage technology. Begin by re-examining the processes and tools that you already have. You may be able to find new ways, like we did in the example for the previous client, to use existing tools. But I caution, don't overspend your time reinventing the wheel when excellent tools already exist out there. It's very important to weed that garden from time to time and get rid of those processes that bog down the system and provide no real value. Understand that your resources have limitations, and it's okay to ask for help. When internal resources are limited, outsource and problem solve with experts. When it comes to the total cost of quality, it is less expensive than getting it wrong and having to handle it multiple times. Lastly, your quality automation transformation is just that. It's a journey. It's not a 50-meter dash. Enhancing your information highway or route structure will lead to a healthier and more sustainable management system. One change can boost your system in ways you might surprise you. Plant that seed now and sow your own success. I'd like to leave you with just my favorite quote from Albert Einstein. The world as we have created it is a process of our thinking. We cannot change it without changing our thinking. So I'd like to take it back to Art for some final wrap-up discussion and then our Q&A session. Art, take it away.
Jenny, thank you so much. Really appreciate you, raising the importance of the culture of quality as well as, the tools. They go hand in hand. So thanks for that. I do have, before we open up to the audience for a Q&A, have a few discussion questions with Jenny and Priyanka and Drew like to share. But now's a great time to enter your questions if you haven't had a chance already, because we'll be getting to those quite soon. So for the first question is for Jenny. How do you see taking a quality management approach as a competitive advantage?
It's definitely a competitive advantage. If you have your management system streamlined and your processes become more and more streamlined, you can do more with less, right? You can have information at your fingertips. You can be audit ready. You don't have to have that scramble right before you get started when you find out, oh no, an auditor's coming next week, or oh no, they just showed up for an unannounced audit when it comes to food safety. You're audit ready all the time. You have your information at your fingertips, and that is a huge advantage.
Thank you, Jenny. I'm going to put a similar question to Drew and Priyanka about automation driving a competitive advantage. What do you see with your clients? Is that how they perceive it?
Yeah, no, of course, no. Thanks for the question, Art. I think what we definitely see clients viewing automation as a competitive advantage. I think that's a given. I think there's a couple of different ways we see clients thinking about it. I think when you look at automation over the last few years, we've really seen a shift of the buying decision for automation, for digital, moving less from the business to more of an IT decision. And so one way of thinking about it as a competitive advantage is, how does moving to digital or automation help to consolidate or build a integrated IT ecosystem at the enterprise level for an organization, and the efficiencies that drives. I think more at the quality level, a lot of what Jenny's been hitting on is how are companies taking these processes? How are they using automation or digital enablers to help make the standard work or the day-to-day operations that quality individuals are executing? Not only that, but it allows folks to get certain activities done in a compliant manner, but more quickly, which allows them to focus on more strategic day-to-day activities and help to drive better outcomes for the business. So I think automation from both a process and kind of an enterprise IT perspective is how we see clients viewing it as a competitive advantage.
Thanks, Drew. So I'm going to put this out to to anyone who wants to jump on this, but thinking about food and beverage specifically, and one of the trends that we've seen over time at ETQ is the status quo, right? Automation would be great, but everything is just working fine. What do you see as in food and bev as to the key drivers to change that narrative from the status quo is okay to not?
I'm happy to jump in.
Great.
To jump in, Art. Yeah, no, I think when we think of clients looking to move away from the status quo, I think there's a couple of different things that are top of mind for them. One area that we are hearing more and more as we talk to clients, not only in food and bev, but consumer goods, in other industries, is really the brand recognition, how customers are thinking of their entity and the products that they may be providing to the market. And so not only kind of viewing the status quo as maybe not the best or the most advantageous way to not only continue to grow in the market or gain additional customers, but looking at ways to differentiate themselves, to produce higher quality products, to produce differentiated products. I think the brand recognition piece is something we see and hear more and more as one component to pushing companies to move away from the status quo. But Jenny, would be interested to hear your thoughts as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say I love the example that you just gave there. I would also say that, regulatory, as Priyanka had explained with some of her slides, as a driver there from a regulatory, with food safety, traceability is becoming more and more critical from a supply chain standpoint, from a regulation standpoint, from an upgrade to standards standpoint. Industry's trying to stay ahead of that, and they've often been drivers of that. But, there's been a lot of changes in the last, there hasn't been a lot of change for a long time, and now suddenly there is a lot of change happening in that space. So I think that's also definitely a driver for that.
And maybe one last thing to add as kind of a combination of those two is even the role consumers are playing in kind of taking, not only evaluating products from this tastes good or I enjoy it, but even how consumers are looking at the quality of products from what is this, what goes into this, what makes this, is this organic? All of those elements that are now that mixed with kind of the platform of social media and the way that consumers can get their word out, that need for being more cognizant of how product quality is viewed, not just from a regulatory perspective, is becoming even more amplified.
Thanks, Priyanka. Really appreciate that. My last question is sort of on the other side of things in terms of, there's the brand protection and the top line value that has is around cost. When we think about food and bev specifically, where are the biggest opportunities to reduce the cost of quality, would you say? Who wants that one?
I don't mind going ahead and getting us started on that one, Art. I think what we typically see, and I think some of the earlier slides that we mentioned, and I can flip to one of those here real quickly. I think what we are seeing is companies are obviously measuring total cost of quality. I obviously highlighted that previously, but I think what we find in terms of how can this be improved is with all of the data, and Jenny, I know in your presentation you touched on it, just the amount of data that companies have and are continuing to bring into the organization is plentiful. But how can you take advantage of that data and really understand really what the full scope of cost of quality is? I think in a couple of instances we've seen where clients are measuring cost of quality or cost of poor quality, but really, with the global nature that a lot of these organizations operate in, not having the full understanding or the full picture or having the full access to the data that may be sitting there to really allow them to take action on processes, different suppliers that they may be having issues with, and really acting on that to help them not only remove that cost of poor quality, but maybe improve or find another avenue to improve those capabilities. So I think the data and the digital component is allowing companies to better see, have better access to what truly is causing them to have such high cost of poor quality numbers. But again, Jenny or Priyanka, if you have anything to add, I'm happy to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I'd love to just piggyback off of that just a little bit and also say, for a long time, I've worked with organizations that have been very siloed, right? Supplier and procurement's over here and manufacturing's over here and, design and development's over here. And they all need to be able to communicate with each other. And that methodology is going away, right? It needs to, in order to have that streamline and that data lake and to be able to harness it and really make those decisions and find, when we talk root cause analysis, right? How are we really getting down to it if you don't have all the data in one centralized place or ease of access to it? So I just wanted to piggyback just a little bit on that.
Thanks, Jenny. Definitely on our side too, we're hearing how important the data is. So those are all the questions that I had. I'm going to give our experts, a chance to just chime in on anything that you think would be important to our audience to share that we haven't covered, that you think would be important to our audience before we dive into the audience Q&A, which, again, a reminder to the audience, great time to enter a question if you haven't a chance already. But is there anything we haven't covered that you would like to touch on? Okay, fabulous. So, Adrian, I'm going to turn it over back to you. Thank you all for this portion of the webinar. I'm going to turn it back to you for any questions we have from the audience.
Great. Thank you, Arthur. And thank you, everybody, for that great presentation and also that great discussion there at the end. So before we get into the open Q&A with our presenters, I'd like to remind you that we love your feedback. So please take a few moments to complete that webinar survey that you'll see on your screen now, or you can also be redirected to it at the end of the program. So we have some good questions coming in from our audience, and you can continue, as a reminder to the audience, you can continue to submit those as we go through the Q&A here. I'll start with the first question. I'll just throw it out, and whoever would like to answer, please speak up. All right, first question for all of you. How do you implement your technology in implementing HACCP for the food industry?
I guess I'll start. So I've worked with several clients that have worked on, there is a great HACCP module within ETQ, a tool. There's tools that you can use. There's also a great document module that allows for the consistency and built up in that. There's risk analysis tools pre-built, and there's also a lot of customization options available. So it's a perfect time when you're going through and keeping your HACCP up to date. And when you make a change like this to technology, to be able to do that in a streamlined review flow phase with a workflow, to have it trigger automatic reviews and pieces of it. So I believe the tools are definitely there. We've used them. Art, would you like to chime in with any of that?
Yeah, I know. Like you said, like I mentioned in my presentation, we have those tools. As a user and a customer, Jenny, I think you've got it covered. If there's more details that particular questioner would like to cover, we're happy to do that offline, but thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you guys so much. All right, next question for you all. So how does ETQ support companies in the process going from small to medium size from a cultural standpoint, from top management down to the employee level? So the cultural mindset of top management and down to employee level on down.
I'll take a first stab at that, and Jenny, I might invite you to chime in as well as a customer and a user. But I think the most important thing is, a culture of quality has to start with the organization, right? Any QMS solution or any software solution can enhance that and provide the measurement and the visibility that that enhances it and helps it grow and maintains the culture. But it really has to come from the strategy of the organization and constant communications and rewards, et cetera, around a culture. This is something we actually talk quite a bit about at our user conference and in other sessions. We've done some webinars on it, which you can find on our website. Happy to share that. But so I know from talking to customers about how we've helped is exactly that, by providing the tools to implement the quality solution, to provide the measurement and the visibility, the reporting around how you're doing with a culture of quality.
I'll chime in,
Jenny,
and just piggyback off.
Yeah.
So absolutely, from getting the metrics, I think from a top level, once they see those metrics and they're in an easy and way to understand and they have that great visibility, that's how it supports the top level. I'd say as it goes down, right all the way to the associate, the floor level, there are some great tools and functionality along with the software that can be built out, such as mobile capabilities. So if you have to do a quick GMP inspection of your area, you have a mobile or a tablet right there. If it's easy for your associate to grab it for 2 seconds, they're more likely and more willing to do that and to not rub up against the status quo, as you're saying, when, you're changing that culture of quality. Like, why do I got to do this now? If it's right there and it's simple, they're going to do it. It's going to be a lot more. You'll have more meaningful data. It'll all be in one place, and it's easy platform to use.
Thanks, Jenny. I want to come back to something that you had said in the beginning of your presentation as well, around the opposite being true, right? Where if there is, quality incidents that are not being addressed, that takes the culture in a different direction. So, they're hand in hand.
Absolutely.
I think one thing from our end, Art and Jenny, I think that we see a lot of times, and Art, you and Jenny both probably familiar with it, is as companies think about kind of taking this next step in the journey and implementing a solution such as ETQ, there are examples where organizations simply implement and kind of expect to reap the benefit directly. But I think we see the most successful implementations really starting when leadership buys into an overall change management approach. I think when you implement a solution like ETQ, there's so much that comes with regard to training and new ways of working that unless leadership's really bought in on making sure that their organization is kind of there every step of the journey and relaying what the benefits are, why this change is going to be good for the organization, I think there can be a bit of hang up at times in kind of adoption, use, et cetera. So a unified change management strategy and approach always is a good thing to have when embarking on a journey such as implementing a tool like ETQ.
And I'd like to just quickly...
That's a good add. Sorry, go ahead, Jenny, please.
I didn't mean to. I was just going to say one thing that you said that caught my ear, and I was like, oh yeah, absolutely, we should manage that. It comes with a lot more than just the software, and I think that this helps drive that culture. Is the ETQ Academy, where it's this online platform that comes with it that has all these instructional things. So, you can do all the trainings, but then if somebody hasn't touched it for a little while or they're new and they're coming back to it, having that at their disposal, at their fingertips, to say, oh, how do I do that again? And, click through it again. They can self-help without having to go to all these additional resources and tying people up, I think is a great feature. So I just wanted to highlight that. Sorry.
No, that was great. So glad you did. Something else Drew said caught my ear, which is around training and change management, which, we recognize are key parts of this. That's why we have, a full training solution that's integrated with all the other applications that I showed. So, It's integrated with the document control. So when there's changes to documents, the training management can be updated and vice versa. And we have a change management application to help with this. So we recognize, that this is a real change.
Great, thank you all. All right, so another question for you. Can you explain a bit more about the vendor audit management?
Yeah, so I'll jump in first. I think, we kind of, the term we apply to that is supplier quality in our, supplier quality application set. So at a very high level, there's a number of things that we provide. One is, as I was mentioning earlier, is the ability to provide secure contextual access to that part of the solution that would concern a specific supplier. Any particular scars, any other types of communication can be done directly through the platform and not through emails, etc. We also have a supplier rating system, so we can help you keep track of how well your suppliers are doing. So you can use that information to manage your suppliers more efficiently. And we also have an onboarding solution for suppliers to speed that process as well. So there's a number of other capabilities involved in that, but it is a very robust area of our platform.
Great, thank you so much, Arthur. Okay, so another question for you all. How effective are SPC relevant to food and beverage organizations?
I'm going to turn that over to the experts if anyone has an opinion on that. I can certainly say that we integrate with SPC solutions as well as many other solutions, CRM, ERP. Through REST APIs, we can pretty much talk to anything, and we see more and more customers leveraging, external data for a number of reasons, whether it be to turn off a supplier or stop ordering additional goods, to capturing data on the plant floor, to bring that into the quality management system. I don't know if either of you have experience with SPC and food and bev specifically to answer that part of the question. I guess not.
I do not. We touched on bringing it in, but.
Oh, and sorry, Jenny, I was speaking over you, but are there actually one of the things that you touched on and where we've seen it be really effective is on the shop floor to say, how are we tracking quality changes that then impact yield? So using SPC to say, to really look from whether it's from a raw material or even from a kind of through the process, how can we use SPC to drive better food yield in incorporating it on the shop floor?
Okay, thank you so much. All right, okay, great. So another question for you. What automation platforms are available? This attendee says, we use iAuditor safety culture and we love it.
I mean, I think from I think ETQ obviously being one of the leading platforms in the space, there are a number of other companies that offer similar type QMS solutions, but whether you're looking for a point solution or a more holistic enterprise platform like ETQ, I think there are a number in the space that all kind of touch on similar processes, similar integrations, but maybe a little more specific with that question, and we can help to better answer it. But I think Art or Jenny, not sure if you have anything to add to that one.
Yeah, I would just say, you're dead on, Drew. I think it depends on sort of what the problem you're seeking to solve is. iAuditor, I don't know that solution specifically, but that's a very, very much of a point solution for a specific thing, as opposed to, we're a broad platform that has all kinds of auditing capabilities, as Jenny pointed out. So, it depends on the problem you're trying to solve on that. I don't know, Jenny, if you have any.
Just to further link it, so if you're looking at ETQ from, and you've got your corrective action management built there, the nice part, like I was sort of giving an example, would be the linkage, right? So if your internal audits are through ETQ, they now can link right directly to your corrective actions or to your recommendations or to your meetings and pull the information right in, and everything's hyperlinked together from an audit trail and just a simplification. So it really just depends on what you're trying to achieve.
Great, Jenny. Thank you for adding those points, and definitely check with ETQ about what their platform has to offer. So we have time for about one or two questions here. So do you have technology for traceability, and especially in terms of recalling products?
Yeah, I think I'll let Jenny kind of take that, because she kind of talked about that in part of her presentation. But yeah, that's kind of a key thing that our customers in food and bev look to us for.
So it starts by building out the on-hold database for what kind of goes out. Depending on what you have, if you're integrated with your SAP or ERP system for your own supplier or distribution system. But from an on-hold standpoint, it absolutely, you keep a running track. It's in real time. Everything is archived after it goes through its natural workflow. Nothing is deleted. So it's all searchable by any field that you want. So as far as traceability, you can be like, oh, I need traceability on this, and you can very quickly find it. You're not doing searching around for it, and you can say, okay, yep, this much was put on hold after I ran my report in SAP. It says we shipped out XYZ cases. We found XYZ minus 200, but here's a hold report for 200 cases, and kind of tie it all together, because it all does link and it can talk to each other. Does that answer your question? I hope so.
Yeah, I think a bit more generally, Jenny, if you don't mind me adding on, I think what we see again with ETQ, similar platforms, is just the digitization of a lot of this. So not only if, and hopefully not for many of you, a real recall does come up, but even the mock recall process, just preparing yourself in the event that something of that nature should occur, the ability to have all of that information available digitally rather than having to pull out boxes and boxes of paper documents, et cetera. So we've seen a number of clients adopt the digital recall, mock recall processes and have had much success with kind of managing traceability electronically that way. So I think that was the last thing I would add there.
Great. Thank you so much, all. All right. So we have time for just one more question. And this one is for our presenters from PwC. So how do your clients make the argument for investment in a QMS, and what ROI are they looking for?
No, sure. Thank you, Adrian, for the question. I think I'll go back to a comment I made a bit earlier in the session. I think as we've seen kind of a growing trend where investment in quality platforms, that decision really moving away from the business being a buyer and having IT more as a key stakeholder at the table and more of a decision maker in that process, because of the capabilities that a lot of these platforms have in being connected into the overall IT ecosystem that an enterprise may have. I think clients are getting much smarter about what they're looking to include in a business case. Now, this can include everything from what the technology costs are, what are some of the savings that organizations are going to have by sunsetting kind of legacy systems or moving off of paper, looking at hard savings, soft savings. So what are the efficiencies that their people are going to gain by implementing a solution such as this? and really using those costs and those savings to drive a tangible ROI, whether that be a 2-year return on investment, 5-year return on investment. So really building strong business cases for what a QMS and specifically a digitally enabled QMS will be able to deliver to the enterprise on a forward-looking basis. But Art, I know you're closely tied to a number of clients. Not sure if you all at ETQ are seeing anything different in this regard.
Yeah, I think thanks, Drew. I think it comes back to the problem being solved. We see all kinds of things. We see organizations come to us as part of a digital transformation initiative. We see clients coming to us for a Quality 4.0 initiative. We see organizations that have had a compelling event, a regulatory or compliance issue or driver. They're one of their big customers is ISO 9000, and they want to be, or whatever the case may be. I think we provide those customers that are interested in the ability to walk them through an ROI analysis to show what the business return would be if they were to automate. And it's a very thorough analysis that we work with our clients on to show the business benefit of that as well, if that is a driver.
Yeah, no, agree, Art. And I think it goes back to one of the things we had in an earlier slide is just how quality, and especially these QMS platforms, are going to help deliver on the business outcomes that so many organizations are looking at: improve revenue, improve margins, et cetera. So I think those are all factors into how companies are thinking of ROI for these types of projects.
Great. So thank you, Drew and Arthur, for those answers. And this was a great discussion. And unfortunately, that's all the time that we have for questions today. But please join me in once again thanking Arthur, Drew, Jenny, and Priyanka for their presentations, as well as today's sponsor, ETQ. So if you have any additional questions or comments, please don't hesitate to click the email us button on your console, and we will share them with our presenters so that they can respond directly to you. And if you didn't have a chance to fill it out earlier, you'll be redirected shortly to the post-event survey. We look forward to hearing how to make our programs work better for you. Please visit food-safety.com/webinars for the archive of this presentation to share with your colleagues, as well as information about our other upcoming events. So we appreciate your time, and we hope you found this webinar to be a valuable experience.